My name is Jamey Kane. I am a senior lead product manager on the live team. My team, we look after basically everything that happens in the live service. So after the game launches, it kind of goes over to our team to see it out from there.
Hi, I'm Azlan Mustapha. I'm the lead producer on the Ultimate Team Plus One group. So what we're responsible for is really launching the game and doing all the big feature development to get it ready to release.
Excellent. So lots of things to cover in a short amount of time. I think I'll go straight ahead with Evos. Now, Evos has been a subject that the community loves, but it also seems quite controversial in some ways. Some TikTok comments go as far as to say just remove Evos altogether. And I feel like for players like me who support a club who don't get tons of items, which we'll come to by the way, I think they're an excellent addition to the game. So what are you doing this year to maybe balance them slightly and stop players having a 75 overall but 90 base stats across the board?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and one that is an important question because, much to your point, evolutions are incredibly popular. They are, for many players, it is like the reason that they play the game. And so, the carte blanche kind of like completely remove them is definitely not an option that we're entertaining. I think as we think about FC27 in general, a lot of sort of like a broader theme of that is better system balance, better cohesion, and evolutions is one example of an area that we need to find some better balance. Just as you were kind of mentioning, there are certain times of the year where evolutions were so strong and they could be used so effectively to build out a very powerful squad in terms of the upgrades and the stats and the play styles that they had on those items, that it kind of invalidated a lot of the excitement that you could get from other areas of the game. So, for example, Team of the Season is maybe the best example of that, where you got to Team of the Season, which is a big step-up campaign in terms of the boosts that players are getting. But a lot of players told us, well, I already have from FUT Birthday, I've already got Evo'd items that are better than most of the Team of the Season items. And we don't want to be in a spot where any system, whether it's evolutions or SBCs or the seasonal ladder, what have you, invalidates the excitement of other areas to get the game. We don't want there to be a wrong way to play the game if you're not doing Evos. Excuse me. So with that in mind, what you can expect for evolutions in FC27 is that we're going to directionally take down the overall power of evolutions, but there's some caveats to that. So that doesn't mean that evolutions are going to be, just bad, right? So, but what it does mean is that in FC26, you could create a full Evo squad with items that were all kind of on the power level of a campaign item across your entire 11 at any given time. What you can expect in 27 is that, sure, you'll still be able to create powerful items in evolutions, but you won't be able to do that at such a high volume. So maybe 1 to 3 items in your squad can be at that power level from an evolution as compared to what you could do back in FC26. The other key change is that when you think about the amount of engagement or coins that you'd have to invest to get a item of an equivalent power in evolutions and elsewhere in the game, so SBCs or the transfer market, it's a lot higher in those other systems than it is in evolutions. So you can expect there to be some changes to the way that we set up the engagement requirements for evolutions or the coins required to actually engage with them.
You mentioned coins there. In the presentation earlier on, you talked about getting more coins, which honestly surprised me because it felt like at one point the mode was almost headed in the direction where coins in the transfer market would be completely eliminated. What has spurred on that change, and has it to do with the way that the market this year changed very quickly, where fodder rated items were discard price very soon, and it's obviously hard to accommodate for that, but if you could share some of the reasons behind going to a more coin-based model again?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I think if we were to zoom out and just think about what makes Ultimate Team, sort of the magic of Ultimate Team, the transfer market is a big part of that. And I think that's here to stay. I can't foresee a future in which we would move meaningfully away from the transfer market. Especially, I'll just speak personally for a moment. I came from a background of content creation. My whole thing was like buying and selling things on the transfer market. If I, before I leave FC, there's no way that we're going to be moving away from the transfer market. Yeah. So with that in mind, and as we think about sort of like how the reward ecosystem has evolved over the past several years, a lot of it has moved towards untradeable content. And to some extent, there were some things that was good about that, right? Like you could get a higher volume of rewards. You could get like maybe even higher shelf appeal rewards where you could get higher OVRs and maybe bigger guarantees in terms of the rarities and the quality of those items. But it led to experiences where perhaps your squad building was a lot less flexible than we wanted it to be. If you had 8 out of the 11 items in your clubs was untradeable, it's difficult to switch to a different squad, right? Or build around a different set of items from a chemistry building perspective. So we think that by shifting over to a ecosystem where there's more tradable rewards, more coins in the ecosystem, that it'll be easier to swap out players and experiment with different tactics, new players as they come out and are released. We think that's just an overall, it's part about building your ultimate team. You don't want to be locked into that ultimate team because of some decision you made 2 months ago about an icon SBC you wanted to do.
Speaking specifically about launch, there's a lot of players who, for them, launch is absolute peak ultimate team because in theory everyone is at this level playing field. There's always going to be players who spend and kind of fast track that race to the top, but how do you make gold items from launch still relevant come November time, when like a couple of weekends into FUT Champs, should people still be expecting gold teams and not campaign items, heroes, icons?
It's a good question. If we were to compare back to FIFA 12, for example, I don't think we're ever going to go back to the days where you have gold items that are viable all the way through, or I mean viable, in quotes, but are competitive with the best campaign items all the way through to the end of the season. I would also mention that I don't think that our fans would particularly like it if we went back all the way to that era. I think that the live service has evolved in such a way that kind of keeps up with players' voracious appetite for what's next in that squad progression journey. When we think about the experience and how this is going to shake out for FC27, I do expect that gold items will be competitive with sort of the new campaign items that we're releasing for longer for a number of different reasons. The first is that we are overall slowing down the pace at which we are upgrading items throughout the course of the year in terms of the item releases that we have. We expect it's going to be about 20% slower than it was in FC26. And that's going to be done in a number of different ways. We talked in the presentation earlier about how we're going to be reducing the max number of playstyles down from 5 to 3. We're going to be reducing the total number of campaign squads that we release in the year by about 5. So those are some of the tuning changes in terms of the actual item release. But the other key change we're making is that we're changing the way that the squad progression journey is going to be experienced by players. So right now it's relatively easy to get to a starter squad. That's going to be consistent in FC27. But then starter squad to strong squad, which maybe at the beginning of the game you could kind of think about as progressing your way up the ranks of getting higher and higher rated gold items. That is going to be not just at the start of the game, but throughout the rest of the year is going to be meaningfully more extended. It's going to take more engagement to do that. And then the journey from a strong squad to an elite squad is going to be meaningfully less challenging, or it's going to require less engagement.
I'll also say, speak for yourself. If I play a full gold team in Champs in November, I am shaking in my boots. Okay, I've had this happen enough times where that is an absolute demon I am matchmaking against.
That's actually, that was something I was wondering about. I feel like a lot of players who are really hardcore at the game, they're on Reddit, they're on social media, they'll finish with 11 wins in Champs or something like that and think they are the average player. Where I always think that is such a tiny percentile of players that actually play. So where is the average player in Rivals? Are they even engaging with that side of the game? And is it that player that you're aiming towards? And how do you balance that with the hardcore, the weekend warriors?
It's a really good question. I think it is something that when I first joined FC, I was a content creator before this. When I first joined FC, I was quite rattled by actually, I'm kind of good at this game. Maybe just to throw a stat out there, on average, it varies by weekend, but on average, if you're finishing with 13 wins, you are in the top 1,000 players in the world for that week, right? You're in rare company if you are finishing on that number of wins in the 15-win system that we have right now. So if you could extend that out to 11 wins, that is not an average player. That is a significantly above average player. So where are our average players? Well, our average player is a truly average player is hanging out in squad battles or hanging out in live events in the lower divisions in Rivals. They're also hanging out in kickoff. They're hanging out in career as well. So there's definitely sort of this sense of skewed perspective, if you will, on social media.
I think in good follow up to, I mentioned last year we added live events, we added tournaments, we added gauntlets. Obviously great experiences for those who are looking for that gladiatorial arena to go and compete in. There's a lot of players out there who, like you said, have been playing squad battles for a while. So I just want to highlight that I think we're really excited this year to be offering now some live event experiences for single player enthusiasts or for people who may not even just have the time to compete in the latest, competitions and live events online, but still want to escape and play through an experience offline. I think that's going to be a meaningful addition this year.
It's a really good point. And there's also, there's that live service roadmap graphic that we showed to you. there's more to come in that space as well, where we're planning on pretty meaningfully innovating on that single player experience in live events. Like if what we have at launch is maybe sort of like the 1.0, I would even consider this like the 2.0 that we have coming out in sort of that like holiday December through January window. So super excited about that post launch.
I wanted to talk, this is like hyper niche, but about the breakdown between heroes, icons, and now the new classification of players for like classic FUT items, the nostalgia driven items. Do you think that perhaps we've gotten to a point where there is maybe too many in one category and some have to be recategorized? I know some icons fell into heroes, and there's always arguments about like, how is Hazard a hero and things like that. How do you approach that? And with this reintroduction of players like Akinfenwa and Fellaini, is that an acknowledgement that the audience is growing up and has this like 15-year nostalgia tied to the game that you can tap into?
I'll jump in first. I think definitely acknowledging the nostalgia piece, because I think even probably amongst us, we were probably sitting there remember that year I had that item and it was just amazing for me.
As soon as you announced
David Luiz.
as soon as you announced it, it's like, where's S-Line? Like,
Sure.
Random Brazil verse.
So I'm going to try and look at it as a positive, that we can all kind of nostalgically look back and be like, remember when? And I think the whole of FUT is a great vehicle for like that communal moment that we can all like look back and talk about. Like, remember that player. So I think I love it nostalgically for that. But in terms of the distribution between, you're right, those three tiers: icons, heroes, and Hall of FUT. We are doing some redistribution this year. The details I don't have top of mind, but there's it's something we're aware of how those players are distributed between those tiers.
Yeah, I do think, I also don't have the details top of mind, but I think it's a testament, sort of the fact that we can have sort of this tier of items in our game that are like throwback items essentially, is a testament to like the strength of the community, the longevity of the title. I think it's pretty cool to be able to look back like 10, 15 years and go like, yeah, we've got this whole wealth of items, and there's sort of this cultural sort of like, a lot of these players were maybe more famous for their the life that they took on in FUT perhaps than some of their exploits in their professional career. I'm sure they wouldn't maybe particularly like me saying that, but like, some players, they had truly FUT fame. They were FUT famous. So yeah.
And just on that, since special icon items have been part of the game for a couple of seasons now, some icons seem to get tons of campaign appearances, whereas some icons, like my personal hero, Henrik Larsson, I think he just has a Trophy Titans and a base icon this season. I know you can't please everyone all the time, but do you acknowledge that some in the community feel like the same players are coming to campaigns over and over again, and is that something you're working to resolve?
100%. I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword there, right? Like, I think there's a reason that we tend to lean sometimes into some of the more popular players, because they are the more popular players, right? Like, players get excited about, the Zidans, the Pelés, the Maradonas, et cetera, of the world. That's not to say that folks don't get excited about the Larsons of the world, but there's sort of a wider audience for some of those bigger names. I do think that there's times that we can find better balances between what we the frequency at which we re-release similar items. The other thing to know or to mention, though, obviously, is that Evolutions is a big part of the way that we like. In many ways, Evolutions was meant to be an answer to that, right? Like, it's you can be a fan of any club, league, nation, etc., or a specific player like Larsson, and Evolutions is your route to say, hey, this player hasn't gotten a campaign item this year, but I'm going to still be able to upgrade them.
And kind of working towards the end of my questions here, we talked about it earlier in the presentation. These new items, like the holographic items, and you showed an image of the signature Maradona. What's the name of that item, just to be clear?
Yeah, so we have holographic items, you're right. And then if the player is 88 OVR and above, they can drop as a pristine holographic, and that's the version that has the font adjusted and the stats hidden away, so it's sort of more beautiful to just look at.
So the obvious question leading on from that is, how much rarer are those versions of that card based, or rather than the campaign item?
Still working through the tuning details. They are substantially a lot rarer than the campaign version. of it, so they won't be common, and that's part of the I think the joy that we want to have with those is that you feel like you've got something really special when you get one. But yeah, we're still working through the exact like numbers on how often
And those can drop as tradable and untradeable.
Yeah, they can drop as untradeable and tradable, and you can evolve them as well, and they'll maintain that holographic effect.
Okay, and just finally, the long requested kind of collection book style mode now, where you're putting all these items in a collection, even if you've traded them in for SBCs or quick sold them and things like that. As part of that, can player items be rewards for complete sets? Is that something, because players have wanted the League SBC system back for so long, or something like that, maybe not exactly that, but explain to me a little bit about how that works and what the reward set might look like throughout the year.
Yeah, I'll start off from the feature side, which is, as you said, it's really like, you can imagine coming through later in the cycle. It's a you can flip back through almost the history of your club, the items that you've had at some point. You may have SBC'd, you may have traded, you may have used for a while, and you know, we all come into Ultimate Team, I think, with that fantasy of like, I want to get my favorite player or my favorite club. So I think that we've been doing that since the beginning of time in Ultimate Team. So to have like an official feature to reward and acknowledge that pattern of behavior, I think is going to be great for our players. I can't wait to get my first, the club I support, to build a set around that, to get my first Team of the Week player for that, to get my first, holographic version, and then have that not just like in my gallery set, but then also you can then, have it on the wall of your club. So whenever you log in, it's sitting there, that version of your favorite player. So that's going to be epic. Maybe from the reward side, Jamey, we talked about, will there ever be specific rewards? Right now, like the individual sets themselves will reward cosmetics and gallery tokens, but those gallery tokens can be exchanged in Season 1 for the base Hall of FUT items, as well as other cosmetics and other items available.
It's worth noting that the base Hall of FUT items are going to be exclusive to the gallery store, so they won't be available on the transfer market, for example. That doesn't mean that like future versions of Hall of FUT items won't be available on the transfer market, but the base items are exclusive to the gallery, which is going to be sort of a compelling reason to go engage in that.
And where will those items set power curve wise? Are those like mid to high 80s, kind of in that middle area?
Yeah, like mid 80s, 84-ish. They're not meant to be like out of the box, like this is going to be an ultra powerful stick in my club until December kind of item. It's more meant to be this is quite fun and nostalgic, and it's like football fandom focused, and if I want to, I can evo them up and make them more powerful and kind of take them along the journey with my club.
Perfect. And just finally, trade offers ever coming back?
No.
That's a clear answer.
It's probably for the best. Thank you very much, guys.
VGC is supported by Patreon. Check out patreon.com/videogameschronicle for more podcasts, ad-free browsing, and extra content. Thank you for your support.